From the underwhelming visuals that made Ant-Man seem different from the other movies, to the dull storyline that didn't give the main leads enough screen time, here's why everyone hates the new Ant-Man movie. Starting off with the biggest letdown in the movie, the action scenes and the CGI, which honestly just didn't do much. Much like every other MCU movie, this one's also a tug of war between good and evil. So it's not like this movie didn't have enough elements to work with when it comes to the action sequences. I mean, Kang uses hordes of soldiers with blue helmets that light up like an army with blue light bulbs for faces. There are literally vehicles that can fly, and we also have big ants. But the action is slow, and the characters and one-note plot are buried by too much CGI and boring special effects. It literally seemed like the actors must have spent most of their time with green screens instead of each other. Rudd is as game as ever, but why use Ant-Man if you're not going to use his personality? Lord Kryler is a mix of all of Bill Murray's funny characters, and he only appears in one scene. William Jackson Harper is funny as a sympathetic telepath, but he's gone for most of the movie, which is a shame. According to a critic, Christy Punchko, this movie is like a child's mixed media project made of paper mache, glitter, and chunks of rotting ground meat. I know that sounds really bad, but the movie was, in fact, reduced to the point where people had no choice but to think of it like a big blob of confusing mess. It did have a few good characters, sure, but the real question, in the midst of the supporting characters, is that why were the protagonists just getting lost? Like, a lot of people talked about this sequel having a bad script, but I think the real problem with Quantamania's script is that the main characters don't get enough time. As Ant-Man, Paul Rudd shines in a way that only he can. And when the Quantumania version of Kang shows up, Major steals the show. Then there's Michelle Pfeiffer, who, not gonna lie, does an amazing job throughout the whole movie. And yet, the Wasp doesn't have a chance to shine. When Evangeline Lilly is in a scene, she does a great job, but sometimes it seems like she's not even a thought, like a sidekick who saves the day at important times, not like she's one of the movie's two main characters. I mean, isn't this supposed to be about Ant-Man and the Wasp? So why is it that the main Wasp doesn't do much for most of the movie? Speaking of forgotten and lost things though, what happened to the unique world of Ant-Man? The first two Ant-Man movies are fun, even though not all MCU fans necessarily like them. But the one thing everyone could agree on was that this movie brings in their own worlds with interesting characters, especially when they interact with Ant-Man, Wasp, and Hope. All of that is taken away by Quantumania. There's no Luis or Kurt. Maggie and Paxton, Cassie's mother and father, are also not there. And then even Jimmy Woo from Randall Park only shows up for a second to show that he and Lang are still in touch. Yes, the quantum realm is where most of the movie takes place, so it's kinda understandable why there's no room for people from our world in that universe. But Marvel should know better by now. For the MCU to shine, we need Easter eggs. This has to do with the bigger story as well as the past, and I think I speak for everyone when I say MODOK is not enough at all. Let's just say that this movie was supposed to build another world, and that's why it didn't rely on the visuals from the previous movie. But even the new world seemed too borrowed. I mean, since the first Ant-Man movie, we've been dreaming about the quantum realm. We think this plane of existence is beyond time and space. And make no mistake, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania gives us a stunning look at life in the quantum realm. It's a sight, all right, but also a deja vu, and not in a good way, because this quantum realm looks like something from a Star Wars movie. We have a scene in a restaurant with aliens who don't make sense until something magical happens. You find out that there's a rebellion in the quantum realm against a big dictator, Kang, and there's an amazing fight at the end that the movie doesn't need. It's easy to understand why Quantumania needs all this Star Wars excitement. Kang needs to be a strong villain, so he needs an empire and a big army. I mean, you need reasons for Ant-Man and the Wasp to get small taller and bigger and fight these bad guys, right? But it feels like a mini Star Wars movie with MCU characters. With all the world building Marvel has done so far in the MCU, you'd think it could have made a Quantum Realm universe that doesn't feel like Star Wars. Though perhaps even more worrying is the fact that the villain might have ruined the essence of Ant-Man. In the past, Peyton Reed's Ant-Man movies showed the MCU what it means to be a hero on a smaller scale. The small stakes adventures were a welcome break from the larger franchise's apocalyptic stakes. They were also a fun break from the bigger threats in the universe. And that's when Kang the Conqueror shows up. Kang is basically the next big bad of the MCU. He's expected to be a threat throughout the multiverse saga, which includes the planned 4th, 5th, and 6th phases of the franchise. Critics liked Major's performance in the movie because he was able to bring gravitas to the role and give off the same kind of menace that made Josh Brolin's Thanos such an interesting and scary villain in the first movie. But Kang's larger-than-life presence overshadowed the quirky and charming storylines that Ant-Man fans have come to expect from side quests. The problems don't just stop there either. In fact, Kang's character even leaves a plot hole in the movie. This is probably one of Ant-Man 3's biggest problems. It wants to do much more than it is able to. The big bad version of Kang, who is stuck in the quantum realm, has to be shown in Quantamania. Ant-Man and the Wasp are the only Avengers who can talk to the quantum realm. So Marvel has to come up with this complicated script to pull the heroes into the quantum realm, where they spend most of their time running around and fighting a huge, seemingly all-powerful threat. Because of this, the world building is a lot like Secret Wars, and characters from the first 2 Ant-Man movies don't show up. All of this is done to show this dangerous version of Kang, and Majors does a great job in the part. But Kang's situation is probably the worst thing about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. He is very resourceful, knows a lot about technology, and is physically strong. He can make everything he needs to rule the quantum realm for millions of years, except the technology that will get him out. With all of that in mind, you won't need to watch Quantumania again on Disney+. You might want to see parts of it to review what Kang says about the details of the multiverse, but that's it. Since we've seen Quantumania, I'm starting to think maybe Jeff Loveness shouldn't write the Kang Dynasty. Or maybe Marvel shouldn't get in the way of the writers so that Avengers 5 isn't a huge letdown. And that, folks, is all for why everyone absolutely hates the new Ant-Man movie.